Commander William Harris looked out the viewport of the Coalition diplomatic vessel as it glided past the edge of human territory. The automated defense satellites hung silently in space, their weapons dormant but ever watchful. 500 years had passed since any human had been seen awake in the galaxy, but their machines kept perfect guard. "Approaching border checkpoint, Commander," said Officer Kelly Reed, her fingers moving across the control panel. "Defense systems are scanning us." William nodded. "Maintain course and speed. Standard protocol." A small light blinked green on their console. The human defense system had recognized them as a registered diplomatic vessel and allowed them passage through the border zone. William released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "I don't understand why we still fear them so much," Kelly said, glancing at the silent defense platforms. "They've been asleep for centuries." William turned to her with a serious expression. "Because we know what they were capable of when awake. The rule exists for a reason." Back at Coalition headquarters, William stood before the council chamber. Representatives from 47 spacefaring species sat in tiered seats, their attention focused on him. "The VEX delegation is once again requesting access to human historical archives," William explained. "This is their third request this year." Council leader Xerax, an ancient being with gray-blue skin, leaned forward. "And what does Commander Harris recommend?" "Deny the request," William said firmly. "The VEX are too new to the galactic community. They don't understand the importance of our protocols regarding human space." Later that evening, William sat alone in the archives, reading ancient records on a glowing screen. The files were restricted to highest-level diplomatic personnel only. They told the true story of why humans had disappeared from galactic politics 5 centuries ago. The records showed that humans had built an empire spanning 57 star systems in just 300 years after achieving faster-than-light travel. They had not conquered through war, but through trade, technology, and occasional displays of overwhelming force. Then, at the peak of their power, they had made an announcement to the younger races. They would sleep. The official reason given was a mysterious threat that required strategic patience. But William had discovered notes suggesting another truth. Humans had run complex simulations predicting that certain aggressive species would destroy themselves if given enough time without interference. Rather than engage in unnecessary wars, humans had chosen to wait. William's research was interrupted by an urgent message. A report from Outpost Epsilon near human space showed unusual activity. VEX scout ships were probing the borders. "They wouldn't dare," William whispered. The next morning, William stood before Council Leader Xerax in a private meeting. "The VEX are testing human defense perimeters," William reported. "If they breach human territory and wake even one colony, we could face a disaster." "Surely the humans would understand it was unauthorized," Xerax said. William shook his head. "The defense protocols don't allow for explanations. Any unauthorized entry triggers revival procedures. And the VEX don't understand what they're poking." "What do the humans have that interests the VEX so much?" Xerax asked. "Technology beyond anything we've achieved," William replied. Before their sleep, humans were approaching technological singularity. The VEX believe human archives contain shortcuts to power. Xerax's expression darkened. "Increase monitoring at all border stations. Issue a formal warning to the VEX delegation." As William left the council chambers, his personal device beeped with an encrypted message from Lisa Blackwood at Outpost Epsilon. "Unusual energy signatures detected from human colony world horizon. Defense grid activity increasing. I think someone's already crossed the line." William stopped walking, a cold feeling spreading through his chest. The one rule that had maintained peace for 5 centuries was about to be broken. Soon, the humans would begin to wake, and the galaxy was not ready for what would follow. Lisa Blackwood stood in the dim control room of Outpost Epsilon, watching red dots move across the large screen. Each dot was a VEX scout ship. They were getting bolder each day, pushing closer to human territory. She rubbed her tired eyes and took another sip of her cold coffee. "They're testing the response times," said Officer Ben Martin, her second in command. "See how they dart in, wait for the defense drones to respond, then pull back." Lisa nodded. "They're mapping the defensive network, playing with fire." She sent another warning report to Coalition headquarters, her third this week. The previous two had received only standard replies. "Continue monitoring. Avoid direct contact." "Command doesn't understand how serious this is," she muttered. Ben looked up from his station. "Maybe they don't want to understand. Human technology is like treasure to some council members. They just don't want to risk waking humans to get it." A loud alarm suddenly cut through the quiet hum of the outpost. One of the monitoring stations had detected a large energy surge from deep in human space. "What's happening?" Lisa rushed to the main console. "A Vex ship just crossed the border," Ben said, his voice tight with concern. "Not a scout. It's a refugee vessel, heavily damaged. Looks like they were running from someone." Lisa watched in horror as the refugee ship limped across human territory, trailing debris. The human defensive satellites immediately changed position, tracking the intruder. Warning signals flashed across the screens. "They're going to crash on New Eden," Ben said. "That's a major human colony world." Lisa made a quick decision. "Prep the shuttle. We need to get there before the defense systems fully activate. That would violate at least 6 coalition protocols," Ben reminded her. "If those defense systems wake the humans, and they think they're under attack, we'll have bigger problems than broken protocols." 3 hours later, their small diplomatic shuttle approached New Eden. The Vex refugee ship had crashed in a valley near one of the silent human cities. Massive white buildings stood like frozen giants against the green landscape. Nothing had disturbed this place for 5 centuries. "Energy readings are spiking all across the colony," Ben reported as they circled overhead. The crash triggered something. Lisa saw movement on the ground near the crashed Vex ship. Small maintenance robots were already surrounding it, scanning the wreckage. But worse was happening in the city. Lights were coming on in buildings that had been dark for hundreds of years. "We're too late," Lisa whispered. "Revival sequences have started." They landed a safe distance from both the crash site and the city. Using binoculars, Lisa watched as large doors opened in the side of a mountain nearby. More machines emerged, these ones bigger and clearly designed for defense. Her communicator chimed with an incoming message from William Harris. "Lisa, what's happening?" "Our sensors show activation protocols at New Eden. A Vex refugee ship crashed here," she replied. "Defense systems are active, and I'm seeing revival pods being transported by automated systems. William, they're waking up." "How many?" "Can't tell yet. Dozens at least. Maybe more." There was a long pause before William responded. "The council is in emergency session. They're arguing about whether to send ships to contain the situation." "Tell them that would be a terrible mistake," Lisa said urgently. "If human defense systems detect an approaching fleet, they'll wake even more humans. We need to establish peaceful contact with whoever wakes up first." A new alarm sounded from Ben's scanner. "Lisa, something's happening at the crash site." Through her binoculars, Lisa saw the Vex survivors being surrounded by human defense robots. The machines weren't attacking, just forming a perimeter. Then a new figure appeared, walking slowly from the direction of the city. It was a human male, wearing a simple gray uniform. He moved with purpose, studying the aliens with calm interest. "William," Lisa whispered into her communicator, "I need to go. The first human is awake, and he's making contact with the Vex survivors." "Be careful," William warned. "Everything depends on these first interactions." Lisa nodded to Ben. "Let's go introduce ourselves before this gets complicated." Dr. Alan Russell blinked as his eyes adjusted to the light. The revival chamber hummed softly around him. 500 years of sleep left his mind foggy, but the emergency protocols had pumped his body full of stimulants. His military training kicked in quickly. "Status report." He called out to the room's computer system. Emergency Revival Protocol Alpha 7 activated, replied a calm female voice. 50 primary defense personnel in revival process. Breach detected on New Eden, Sector 4. Ellen stepped out of the pod and quickly dressed in the uniform waiting for him. The revival center buzzed with activity as other pods opened. Men and women emerged, all looking disoriented but moving with purpose. Dr. Russell called a woman with captain's insignia. "I'm Susan Hayes, Security Division. What do we know about the breach?" "Not much yet," Ellen replied. "Let's get to the command center." The command center was a large room deep inside the mountain. Wall screens showed views of the crashed alien ship and the defensive robots surrounding it. Ellen studied the footage carefully. "These aliens don't match any species in our database," said Susan. "We've been asleep for 5 centuries," Ellen reminded her. "The galaxy would have changed. New species would have joined the community." A young officer interrupted them. "Sir, we've detected another small vessel. 2 humanoids are approaching the crash site." Ellen watched as the camera zoomed in on 2 figures walking slowly toward the Vex survivors. They wore uniforms he didn't recognize, but they were clearly human or very human-like. "Interesting," he murmured. "Let's go meet our visitors." 20 minutes later, Alan stood face to face with Lisa Blackwood and Ben Martin. The defensive robots kept a watchful perimeter around them all, including the injured Vex survivors who huddled near their damaged ship. "Coalition diplomatic course?" Alan asked, looking at their uniforms. "That's new. Formed 300 years ago," Lisa explained carefully. "After humans entered stasis, the remaining species needed a framework for cooperation." Alan nodded thoughtfully. "And these others?" He gestured toward the Vex. "They're called the Vex. A relatively new spacefaring species, only joined the galactic community 40 years ago." Alan crouched down to look at one of the injured Vex. The alien had purple skin and 4 eyes that watched him warily. "Why were they running?" Alan asked. "Their ship took weapons fire." Lisa hesitated. "They're controversial. The Vex believe in technological advancement at any cost. They've been seeking access to human archives and technology. Some say they've stolen artifacts from other species." Alan stood up. "So they weren't running from external enemies. They were fleeing your coalition. A faction within it," Ben clarified. "Not all council members approved the action against them." A sudden alert chimed from Alan's communicator. "Dr. Russell, we're detecting multiple ship signatures approaching the system. Configuration unknown." Alan's expression hardened. "It seems your coalition is coming to contain the situation." Lisa shook her head firmly. "No, the council was still debating when we left. These must be..." "More Vex ships," Ben interrupted, checking his scanner. "A lot of them." Ellen exchanged glances with Susan, who had joined them outside. "This wasn't a random crash, was it? Your refugees were bait." Before Lisa could respond, a massive shadow passed overhead. A Vex warship broke through the clouds, much larger than the crashed refugee vessel. It began deploying smaller craft that descended toward the human city. "They're after our technology archives," Alan realized. "They think most of us are still sleeping." Susan was already issuing orders into her communicator. "All defense stations activate. Wake protocols Beta through Delta. We are under attack." Alan turned to Lisa and Ben. "You have a choice to make, coalition representatives. Those are your people up there, about to make a very big mistake." Lisa looked at the approaching Vex ships, then back at Alan. "They're not our people, and they have no idea what they're about to face." "No," Alan agreed, watching as lights began to flash across the human city as more defense systems activated. "They really don't." Captain Samantha Kelly opened her eyes to flashing red lights. The revival chamber of the battlecruiser Nightfall hummed with activity as crew members woke from their long sleep. A computer voice calmly repeated, "Emergency Protocol Omega-7 activated. All combat personnel report to stations." Samantha quickly dressed in her uniform and made her way to the bridge. The ship had been dormant for 5 centuries, but everything looked clean and ready. Maintenance systems had kept everything perfect during the long wait. "Status report," she ordered as she took the captain's chair. "Captain Kelly, the system has promoted you to fleet commander," said her first officer, Jack Peterson. "3 other ships are waking crews. We have enemy vessels in orbit around New Eden." "Show me," Samantha said. The main screen lit up with a view of space around their planet. 12 alien ships were positioning themselves above the main human city. They were already sending smaller craft down to the surface. "Who are they?" Samantha asked. "Unknown species, not in our records," Jack replied. "But we're receiving communications from Dr. Russell on the surface. He calls them Vex and says they're after our technology archives." Samantha's eyes narrowed. "Power up all systems. Prepare for combat operations." Aboard the lead Vex warship, Commander Xerex watched with excitement as his forces descended to the human city. After years of research, he had finally found the legendary human data cores. With that technology, the Vex would become the dominant power in the galaxy. "Our scans show minimal resistance," reported his second. "Only a small number of humans have awakened. Most defense systems appear to be on automated settings." "Perfect," Xerex said. "Begin the extraction teams. I want those archives." An alarm suddenly blared through the ship. "Commander, 4 human vessels are powering up in orbit." Xerex spun around. "Impossible. Our intelligence said their ships were unmanned." On the view screen, he watched with growing horror as massive human warships lit up with energy, their weapons systems coming online. On the nightfall, Samantha gave the order. "Target the Vex command ship. Disable their engines but avoid destruction if possible. We need prisoners for questioning." The human ships moved with precision that surprised even their own crews. 5 centuries of sleep had not dulled the performance of their vessels. On the surface, Alan Russell led a team of awakened soldiers toward the city center, where Vex troops were attempting to breach the main archive building. "They don't know what they're doing," he told Lisa and Ben, who had chosen to stay with him. "Those archives have security measures that will destroy the data if accessed improperly." Lisa's communicator suddenly activated. William Harris appeared on the small screen, looking deeply concerned. "Lisa, the Coalition Council has received reports of human warships attacking Vex vessels. They're interpreting this as the beginning of a human offensive against all non-human species." "That's not what's happening," Lisa said urgently. "The Vex attacked first. The humans are defending their world." "The Council isn't listening," William replied. "They're mobilizing defensive fleets across all sectors. They fear this is the beginning of human expansion again." Ben looked at Alan. "This is spiraling out of control. If the Coalition sends ships against your forces, it could trigger a galaxy-wide conflict." Ellen nodded grimly. "We need to contact our fleet commander immediately." Above them, the battle in orbit had already begun. The Nightfall fired precise shots that disabled 2 Vex ships without destroying them. The other human vessels moved to block the escape routes of the remaining Vex forces. Samantha watched from her command chair as the Vex attempted evasive maneuvers. Their technology was advanced, but human ships were faster and more powerful. "Captain," said her communications officer, "we're receiving an emergency transmission from the surface. Dr. Russell reports that the Coalition forces believe we're initiating a war against all alien species." Samantha closed her eyes briefly. This was becoming more complicated than a simple defense operation. "Open a channel to all Coalition frequencies," she ordered. "We need to explain our actions before this gets worse." But as she prepared to speak, sensors detected new ships entering the system. Not Vex, but a mixed fleet of Coalition vessels, all with weapons ready. Admiral Paul Rivera stood on the bridge of the flagship Defender, watching the tactical display with concern. His vessel had been in deep sleep orbit around Earth when the emergency wake protocols activated. Now he commanded the largest human battle group to emerge from stasis so far. Multiple coalition forces approaching from 3 vectors, reported his tactical officer. They're moving into attack formation. Paul nodded calmly. Open all communication channels. Let's talk before we fight. At coalition headquarters, William Harris rushed into the emergency session of the council. Representatives from dozens of species argued loudly over one another. Fear had replaced reason. "We must strike now, while most humans remain asleep," shouted the Brachian delegate. "The prophecies were true. Humans will reclaim their empire," cried another. William pushed his way to the center of the chamber. "I have direct communication from our representatives on New Eden. The humans are only defending themselves against Vex aggression. They have not attacked any coalition forces." Council leader Xerax raised a hand for silence. "We have reports of human warships destroying Vex vessels." "Disabling, not destroying," William corrected. "And only after the Vex attacked their planet." Before Xerax could respond, a scientist burst into the chamber. Dr. Maria Diaz was the coalition's leading expert on pre-sleep human technology. "The Vex deceived us," she announced. "I've discovered communications proving they manufactured this crisis. They wanted the humans to wake." The council chamber fell silent. "Why would they want that?" Xerax asked. Maria displayed a holographic image of ancient text. They found fragments of human records describing something called the Ascension Protocol, technology that could transform a species into something greater. The Vex believe humans achieved this breakthrough before their sleep. On New Eden, Alan led his team through the city streets. They moved carefully, using buildings for cover. Ahead, Vex soldiers were breaking into the Central Archive building. If they access those data cores incorrectly, the security systems will trigger, Alan explained to Lisa and Ben. "We store our most dangerous knowledge under special protection." Lisa looked worried. "What kind of protection?" "The kind that ensures no one can steal it," Alan replied grimly. Inside the archive building, Vex soldiers had reached the central chamber. They connected devices to the sleeping human systems, attempting to download centuries of technological advancements. "We're in," announced the Vex technician excitedly. "Beginning data transfer." The Vex commander smiled as information began flowing into their devices, but his smile faded as strange symbols appeared on the screen. "What is that?" he demanded. The technician looked confused. "I don't know. It's not in any format we recognize." In orbit, Samantha's ship Nightfall faced the approaching coalition fleet. She had managed to open communications with Admiral Rivera's forces, but the coalition ships weren't responding to hails. "They're charging weapons," Jack reported. Samantha made a quick decision. "Launch message drones toward their fleet. Physical message delivery might get through if they're blocking communications." In the coalition flagship, Captain Drez was preparing to fire on the human vessels when an object struck their hull with a soft thud. "What was that?" he demanded. "Some kind of message pod," his officer replied. "It's transmitting text only. We are not your enemy." Vex manipulated this conflict. Request immediate ceasefire and joint operation against real threat. Drez hesitated. The pod carried no weapons, just a message. Back on New Eden, the Vex commander watched in horror as his soldiers began to change. The ones who had directly connected to the human systems were clutching their heads, their bodies trembling. "Shut it down," he ordered. "Disconnect everything." But it was too late. The security protocols were already working. The Vex who had touched the human data were being altered by it, their bodies and minds transforming in ways they couldn't control. Alan and his team burst into the archive chamber just as the affected Vex soldiers began to change color, their purple skin taking on a metallic sheen. "What's happening to them?" Lisa asked in horror. "Neural security," Alan explained. "The archives recognized unauthorized access and unleashed a defensive program. It's rewriting their neural patterns." The Vex commander backed away from his transformed soldiers, who now turned toward him with blank expressions. This is why we slept, Alan said softly. Some knowledge isn't meant to be taken. It has to be earned. Alan watched as the transformed Vex soldiers stood perfectly still, their bodies now covered in a metallic sheen. Their eyes glowed with a soft blue light. They didn't attack or speak, just waited. What's happening to them? Lisa asked again, keeping her distance. The security program is designed to protect our most advanced research, Alan explained. These Vex tried to steal knowledge they weren't ready for. The system is containing them. Ben checked his scanner. Their brain patterns are completely changed. It's like something else is thinking through them now. Outside the archive building, more Vex soldiers were landing in small craft. They hadn't yet realized what had happened to their comrades inside. Alan accessed a computer terminal. I need to see what else is waking up. The defensive protocols work in stages. His fingers moved quickly across the screen. Data flowed past, showing system after system activating across human space. His face grew increasingly worried. This is worse than I thought, he said. The Vex didn't just attack here. They've breached 7 human worlds simultaneously. It was coordinated. In orbit above New Eden, the situation had reached a tense standoff. Samantha's ships faced the Coalition fleet, weapons ready but not firing. Her message drones had bought them time, but not resolution. Admiral Rivera is requesting to speak directly with the Coalition commander, Jack reported. Samantha nodded. Make it happen. On the bridge of the Coalition flagship, Captain Drez received the communication request. After a moment's hesitation, he accepted. The image of Admiral Paul Rivera appeared on his screen. The human admiral looked calm despite the crisis. Captain Drez, Rivera said, I understand your concern, but I assure you, humans have no interest in attacking the Coalition. Then explain your ships activating across 7 sectors. Drez replied suspiciously. We're responding to Vex incursions on our worlds, Rivera explained. Our defense systems woke us because we were under attack. Before Drez could respond, an urgent message came through from Coalition headquarters. William Harris and Dr. Maria Diaz appeared on a split screen. Captain Drez, William said quickly. The Council has confirmed the Vex deception. Stand down immediately and coordinate with human forces. Maria added, the Vex are after human singularity research. If they access it incorrectly, the consequences could affect the entire galaxy. Deep within New Eden's archive, something ancient was stirring. The security breaches had activated emergency protocols beyond the initial defensive measures. A large circular platform in the center of the archive began to glow. Alan's eyes widened as he recognized what was happening. No, they've triggered Protocol Omega. What's Protocol Omega? Lisa asked, sensing the fear in his voice. Our last resort, Alan said quietly. When we went to sleep, we left safeguards in place. If multiple human worlds were attacked simultaneously, the system would assume an extinction-level threat. The glowing platform pulsed, sending a signal that traveled faster than light across human space. In response, pods buried deep beneath the surface of every human world began to activate. Admiral Rivera received the alert on his ship. Protocol Omega has been initiated. All human forces prepare for full emergency response. Samantha felt the deck vibrate beneath her feet as new systems came online throughout her ship. Weapons she didn't recognize began to charge. What's happening? Jack asked, looking at readings he'd never seen before. The real reason we went to sleep, Samantha said softly. We had developed technology that approached true singularity, but we realized it wasn't time to use it. On New Eden's surface, the transformed Vex soldiers suddenly moved in unison. They walked to the glowing platform and arranged themselves around it. Then they spoke with one voice, but the words weren't in any language Lisa or Ben recognized. Alan listened with growing dread. They're speaking the machine language from our deep research. The security program isn't just containing them. It's using them. Using them for what? Ben asked. The answer came as the platform's glow intensified. A holographic display appeared, showing the locations of all Vex forces across human space. One by one, the locations were highlighted. "The system is targeting them," Alan said. "All of them." In orbit, Coalition and human ships detected new energy signatures from the planet below. Something powerful was activating. "We need to get the Coalition ships out of this system now," Samantha told Admiral Rivera. "Protocol Omega doesn't distinguish between threats. It will target anything non-human in range." Rivera nodded grimly. "Inform Captain Tres. All Coalition forces must withdraw immediately. Tell them the humans are about to wake up fully." The sky above New Eden filled with strange light. Protocol Omega had fully activated. Across human space, ancient weapon systems came online. But the cost was terrible. The massive energy surge destroyed much of what remained of the human cities. Buildings crumbled. Infrastructure that had stood silent for 5 centuries collapsed into ash. "Our empire," Alan whispered as he watched the destruction through the archive's windows, "all to keep this power contained." The transformed Vex soldiers stood around the glowing platform, now serving as conduits for the human defense system. Through them, the security program was tracking and targeting every Vex ship across human territory. In orbit, Coalition vessels retreated to safe distances, but many Vex ships tried to flee with stolen technology. They didn't get far. Pulses of energy unlike anything the galaxy had seen before leaped from human worlds, striking the Vex vessels with perfect precision. "They're not destroying them," Samantha noted from the bridge of the Nightfall. "They're disabling and changing them." On her view screen, captured Vex ships glowed with the same blue light as the transformed soldiers. Their systems were being rewritten by the Human Defense Network. Admiral Rivera opened a communication channel to all human and Coalition forces. "This is Admiral Paul Rivera of the Human Fleet. Protocol Omega is active but contained. We seek no conflict with the Coalition. Our target is only the Vex aggression." On the Vex homeworld, chaos erupted. Their leaders had already begun using the fragments of human technology they'd stolen before the attack. Now those leaders were transforming, their bodies and minds changing in horrific ways. They had accessed knowledge they couldn't understand, and it was reshaping them into monstrous forms. "The Vex High Command has lost control," Maria reported to the Coalition Council. "The stolen human technology is corrupting their entire system." Williams stood beside her, addressing the Council. "Humans created Protocol Omega not as a weapon, but as a containment system. Their most advanced research approached true technological singularity. They went to sleep to give other species time to develop naturally, without this power distorting evolution." Xerax looked troubled. "And now that power is loose." "Not loose," William corrected, "activating in a controlled response." On New Eden, Alan worked frantically at the archive terminal. Lisa and Ben helped him as best they could, but the human systems were beyond their understanding. "What are you trying to do?" Lisa asked. "Modify Protocol Omega," Alan explained. "It was designed as a last resort, to contain threats by any means necessary. But I can redirect it to heal rather than just neutralize." Through the archive windows, they could see the transformed Vex soldiers walking out of the building in perfect unison. They moved toward their crashed ships and began modifying them with their bare hands, reworking alien technology with inhuman precision. "They're becoming a repair system," Ben realized. Alan nodded. "That's part of why we chose to sleep. Our technology was reaching the point where it could rebuild or destroy on a massive scale. We needed to let the galaxy evolve without our interference." Across human space, the story was the same. Human worlds lay in ruins, their once great cities now largely ash and rubble. But from the ashes, new structures were emerging. The modified Vex drones, now controlled by human security systems, were building something different. In the Coalition Council chamber, a message arrived from Samantha Kelly. Her face appeared on the main display. People of the Coalition, she said, we regret the circumstances of our awakening. What you see happening is not conquest. Protocol Omega has neutralized the Vex threat, but at great cost to our civilization. The screen showed human cities in ruins, their once magnificent structures reduced to ashes. Our empire is gone, Samantha continued. But perhaps that's for the best. We went to sleep because we recognized the danger our technology posed. Now we offer a partnership. The knowledge that the Vex sought so desperately can be shared safely, in time. Admiral Rivera joined the transmission. We propose a new coalition, with humans as equals, not rulers. The ashes of our empire will fertilize something better, a galaxy where knowledge is earned through cooperation, not taken by force. In the New Eden archive, Alan finally completed his modifications. The transformed Vex soldiers stopped their work momentarily, then resumed with slightly altered purpose. What did you change? Lisa asked. Alan smiled slightly. I reminded the system that destruction isn't the only way to prevent misuse of power. Sometimes teaching is better. From the ruins of the human empire, a new future began to take shape.